JT for Flying North blog, reporting from the waters somewhere between South America and Antarctica. And so the Antarctic expedition begins on board the MS Expedition, a ship that holds approximately 130 passengers, expedition crew members, and is registered in Liberia and was built in 1973. Behind me you can see the lifeboats, just in case. So here we are at the first leg of the Antarctic journey. Today we are crossing the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage is a body of water that lies between Ushuaia, Tierra del Fuego, the southern tip of South America, and the Antarctic Peninsula. It is named after Sir Francis Drake, who crossed through the Straits of Magellan through this area in the late 16th century. It takes approximately 2 to 3 days to cross from the southern tip of South America to Antarctica, and these waters are notoriously turbulent. Here we are, day 2, sailing through the Drake Passage. As you can see, the waters are a lot calmer today. Last night at approximately 12:30 a.m. we passed over what's called the Antarctic Convergence. The Antarctic Convergence is a place in the sea where the water temperature drops significantly, and it's also known as the largest biological barrier in the world, separating the Antarctic Sea from the Atlantic, Pacific, etc. Sailing south between 50 and 60 degrees latitude, a swift change in sea and air temperature occurs. Characterized by sea fog above the water, the convergence marks the boundary of cold Antarctic waters. And we've made it to Antarctica. Antarctica is like nowhere else on Earth. While there are other wild places or ones that seem extreme, this is the only continent in the world where people have never permanently lived. In the interior of the continent, there is nothing to make a living from. No food, no shelter, no clothing, no fuel, no liquid water, nothing but ice. People have long suspected that there may be some kind of land at the bottom of the world. The Greeks believed in Antarctica, saying, with the peculiar logic of philosophy, that there must be a far southern continent to balance out the land in the north. Poets and novelists dreamed up new races of humans inhabiting tropical southern lands, or a hole at the South Pole that gave access to a hollow earth beneath. They were free to dream. The great sailing expeditions of discovery, which showed European powers the new worlds of the West and the ancient ones of the East, were always forced to turn back if they traveled too far south. They were blocked by the great ring of impenetrable pack ice that circles the southern seas. The first sighting of the continent's outermost islands in 1819 did little to stop the speculation of what might lie beyond. And the first serious attempts to penetrate its interior took place barely 100 years ago, in the heroic age of exploration by Scott, Amundsen, Shackleton, and the rest. Antarctica was slow to be discovered, even when men were looking for it. Captain Cook was within 75 miles of Antarctica in the Antarctic summer of 1773 and 74, but the pack ice abutting the continent was impenetrable, and he missed seeing the continent. The Antarctic Peninsula, which is part of the continent, was first sighted in the early 1820s, but the main body of the continent was not seen until the 1840s. and even then no one knew for certain that it was a continent they were looking at. Antarctica, then, was totally isolated from the rest of the Earth. Activities in the Antarctic are governed by the Antarctic Treaty of 1959 and associated agreements, referred to collectively as the Antarctic Treaty System. The treaty established Antarctica as a zone of science and peace. In 1991, the Antarctic Treaty consultative parties adopted the Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, which designates the Antarctic as a natural reserve. The protocol sets out environmental principles, procedures, obligations, etc. for comprehensive protection of the Antarctic environment and its dependent and associated ecosystems. The environmental protocol applies to tourism and non-governmental activities as well as governmental activities in the Antarctic Treaty area. It is intended to ensure that these activities do not have an adverse effect on the Antarctic environment or on its scientific and aesthetic values. This guidance for visitors to the Antarctic is intended to ensure that all visitors are always aware of and therefore able to comply with and respect the treaty and the associated protocols. Taking or harmful interference with Antarctic wildlife is prohibited except in accordance with a permit issued by a national authority. What does this mean? It means not using aircraft, vessels, small boats, or any other means of transport that will disturb the wildlife. It means not feeding or handling birds or seals or any other wildlife in Antarctica. It means not damaging plants by walking on them, for example. It means not using guns or explosives that may startle the wildlife. And it means not bringing any kind of native plants or seeds or fruit or anything that would disturb the Antarctic ecosystem. And here I am in the ship's mudroom. This is where we prepare for landings on the continent. We take vehicles called Zodiacs, and before we can do that, we have to put on the proper gear, as you can see behind me, and we need to have our boots and pants and any other item we might be bringing disinfected so that we don't bring any foreign plant materials to Antarctica. Once we have dressed appropriately and have had our boots disinfected, we're ready for our disembarkation. Each Zodiac holds 8 to 10 people, and aided by crew members, we board. From there, the Zodiac takes us to the White Continent for a landing, and then it turns around and heads back to the MS Expedition to pick up more trekkers. Once in Antarctica, the Zodiac shuttles us back and forth as appropriate. Antarctica is the coldest, highest, and driest continent on Earth. And right now I'm feeling pretty cold. hiking up what is the mainland of Antarctica on the Antarctic Peninsula. Nikko Harbor lies on the eastern shore of Andvord Bay, approximately 11 kilometers or 7 miles south of the Errara Channel. It was discovered by Gerlache during his Belgian Antarctic expedition in 1897 through 1899. It is named for the floating whale factory ship Nikko, which often used this bay. Nikko operated between 1911 and 1912, and 1923 and 1924 in the South Shetlands and Antarctic Peninsula. This site is a mainland landing and home to approximately 500 breeding pairs of Gentoo penguins. Nikko Harbor is on the Antarctic Peninsula. The Antarctic Peninsula is a curved 620-mile, 1,000-kilometer-long finger of heavily glaciated mountainous terrain that is studded with beautiful peaks, some of which rise to over 9,800 feet or 3,000 meters. Geologically, the Antarctic Peninsula is an extension of the massive Andean mountain chain, and like the Andes with its prominent volcanoes, there is active volcanism on Deception Island just off the northern tip of the peninsula. Some 600 nautical miles, or 690 miles, beyond the South American continent and due south of Cape Horn, the peninsula stretches from the ice-choked waters of Hope Bay at 63 degrees south all the way to the edge of Antarctica's polar plateau at 74 degrees south. The shores were filled with Gentoo penguins. Also known as the Johnny penguin, this penguin has distinctive white triangular patches above its eyes. It lives in the sub-Antarctic, occurring circumpolary from Marion Island and the Crozettes past Macquarie Island to the Antarctic Peninsula and southeastern coast of South America. There are two subspecies, the northern and the southern Gentoo, but to most people it's just a Gentoo. Further up the peninsula, on Danko Island, more Antarctic wildlife revealed itself, such as the brown subantarctic skua bathing themselves, and a pair of fur seals enjoying the beautiful Antarctic day.
Antarctica doesn't give up its secrets easily. But when it does, it is spectacular. Whether it's an iceberg that is a masterpiece of nature's art, an endless colony of Gentoo penguins, an isolated research station, a lone seal sunbathing, an unexpected snowstorm, a spectacular blue, the likes of which you've never seen, a random combination of snowfall and spotlight that transforms the night into something otherworldly. The majesty of the transantarctic mountains and their glaciers, or pristine landscapes untouched by time. The experience of setting foot on the Earth's least visited and most mysterious continent is truly transformative. My advice? Do it.